then let me start by welcoming everybody and thanking Tyler Bunch, two-time Emmy nominee, Emmy winner Tyler Bunch, one of my best friends, coming on today to tell us about his journey. So welcome, Tyler.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. This is awesome.
Isn't this fun how we get to like act out like right now, like with our voices and everything else, like we're not just hanging out having lunch?
We have to put our game faces on.
Which we've done a few times.
Yeah.
Tyler, tell me how you started off in entertainment.
Oy. So, interestingly enough, theater is probably where I would say is where my feet got wet before I could walk really well. My dad was in academia, specifically academia for theater education, and I was born during his undergraduate years, and my sister was born during the first of his graduate years. And we kind of followed his career as youth. We followed him trying to find an established university that would open the possibilities of an eventually tenured position. And so he worked his way through tech theater and teaching tech theater, teaching musical theater. And so Dad was always at the theater. And when mom and dad didn't have money, it meant mom was also at the theater and we were at the theater. So because they couldn't afford a babysitter, I was in my first play at the age of 3. The Great Smoky Mountain Passion Play in Tennessee. My dad was the tech director of it. My mom, I think, helped out with costumes and did some other stuff. And Jesus used to put me on a donkey because it's the Passion Play. For those of you that don't know, the story of Jesus is typically called the Passion Play. And this was an outdoor drama. And Jesus was Jesus to me. So much so that my parents tell a story about going to one of the parties, which happened often after a long weekend of performing. Somebody would host, and they were at somebody's one-level house and brought, infant sister along. And both my parents kind of realized they hadn't seen me in a while. So they're looking around, Tyler, hey, everybody quiet down. Tyler, yeah, where are you? I'm in the kitchen. What are you doing? Jesus is teaching me how to make a martini. Again, it's a third-person story. I don't remember it. But yeah, so basically my whole childhood, if I wanted to spend time with Dad, I was at whatever university's theater department, either summer programs or helping him in the scene shop or whatever. So theater was kind of the family business. I thought I was going to be a zoologist. That was my thing. Until I was like 14 years old, I was going to be with animals and study animals. And yeah, I do theater because Dad makes me, sort of. And it was fun and I liked it. But I didn't have a passion for it. It was just always there. And then when my parents got divorced and mom moved us back to Oklahoma, specifically Tulsa, to be near family while she took care of us, my social currency during my high school years was not being a scientist. I was not the smartest kid in the science class. But theater felt like home. It was home, and I knew what was going on, and I knew how to work the moments, and it was easy for me. And people gave me respect because of the knowledge base that I had and the abilities that I was gaining and getting even stronger at. And I fell in love with theater when I wasn't required to be there.
Nice. What made you what was the move from Tulsa to New York?
It was a little hip hoppy. My dad being in academia, they wanted me to get a college degree in case, as I had decided I was going to be an actor by the time I was a senior in high school. You have to go to college though. And of course I wasn't interested in anything else. So I started pursuing an undergraduate degree in theater, which is the most useless piece of paper on the planet.
Oh, I know. I have one. I was able
yeah.
to wait tables in any restaurant in New York City with it. It's fantastic.
And you can rinse it out when you're done wiping the table.
It was great. I got my own crummer when I graduated, my own wine key. It was fantastic.
And so I started at the state school. So I took 6 months off and I did the Disney college program. Worked at Disney in the parks, pushing buttons on a ride, and then finished my collegiate career and started dabbling in puppetry while I was in college, specifically puppetry for television as a hobby, and then worked for a year to try to save up money uselessly because I didn't want to hit New York needing a paycheck. I wanted to be able to hit New York auditioning and not worry about paying rent for the first 6 months. But I was not as successful as I thought in saving money. And a friend of mine very generously offered to lend me the money that I was planning on saving. She was aware that I wasn't hitting my goals about a month before I was going to head to New York. And she said, how about I just cut you a check and you pay me back when you can? So she cut me a check for $6,000. So I could move to New York and not have to work for the first at least 6 months. And I had hoped,
Good
I was going to
friend.
be able to stretch that into her. Yeah. Yeah. And I got to pay her back within 2 years. I got to pay her back,
Sweet.
which was awesome.
Sweet. Awesome. What was your first gig in New York?
Well, that's a loaded question. Because there's obviously there's the gigs you want to have and there's the gigs you have to have, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kind of made a deal with myself that I wasn't ever going to do anything that didn't involve performative art in some way. I always had like I'm not going to wait tables. I'm not going to be a temp. If I will do down dirty work as long as it feels like I'm doing something at least semi-creative. I went to some open call auditions. I went to an audition for an equity showcase of a new work that was vignettes about the AIDS epidemic and people being impacted in various ways. And I auditioned, and I had my resume, special skills, and I had been a scenic carpenter with my dad, and I had parlayed that into some work before I left college. And one of the things I did in college was I built lofts in people's dorm rooms just to make more space.
Nice.
Side note, the college eventually changed the codes for lofts to follow my structural designs, at least in terms of support, because other people tried to make them, they'd fall apart, but mine lasted. So I am a decent carpenter. So I had carpentry on my special skills.
That came from your background with Jesus.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. All those nails going in appropriate holes. When I auditioned for the showcase, special skills carpentry, they were like, "Oh, carpentry. Would out of curiosity, would you be interested in helping with the set if you got involved with the production?" I was like, "Yeah, I can do that. Sure, why not?" 2 days later, they called and said, "We'd be totally interested in, we have, there's a couple of roles that you'll play in the showcase, and we'd like for you to design and build the set." I was like, "Oh, design? Oh, okay." Gulp. Don't worry about it. We have connections to the Juilliard School. You'll be able to use some stuff from there, and we'll see. So I met the dude about a week into rehearsals. I met the guy at the Juilliard School, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm from so and so," and that was kind of amazing walking into the backstage area of their main stage space.
Yeah.
And kind of seeing everything, and wow, and their shop was decent sized, and a lot of capable folks, and a lot of interns and student workers in the shop, paying tuition by working there. And they kind of took me to a storage room and they're like, "These are the platforms you can use. That's all we really have. We're not going to be able to spare much as far as lumber goes, but you use whatever you want of these." And I took the list of stuff and I designed and built a very interesting set, I think. Well, those folks from the Juilliard School came to see the show. And after the show, they were like, "Do you want a job?" So I became a scenic carpenter at the Juilliard School
Nice.
for a little over a year. That same showcase, one of the other folks involved was like, "You're really fun. Do you sing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I actually I sing. I think you'd like these folks." And they sent me to the New York Gilbert and Sullivan Players with a recommendation. And so I auditioned for them, and I got my first paid gig as a performer with the New York Gilbert and Sullivan Players, being a principal dancer for them. I was a little more fit back then. I was a lot more fit back then. And that then led to a couple other interesting associations, because one of the women who worked for the Gilbert and Sullivan Players was also the person who coordinated toy demonstrators at FAO Schwarz. So literally there was a time where they would hire people who literally your job was you got assigned that day to kind of interest people in whatever product FAO Schwarz was trying to push at the time, whether it's
That's
little planes or
fun.
Legos or whatever. So literally just go in and get to play with toys
At FAO
and get paid
Schwarz
for an
in
hour. Yeah.
Manhattan.
Yeah.
That's
It was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And they figured out that I have kind of a tech mind, so I wound up demoing most often the Philips CDI machine, which for you kids out there is the first. It was the first thing that was kind of like a DVD player. So I had Star Trek Wrath of Khan was on 2 discs. They couldn't fit it into one. And what I would do is because it also played games, I would play Tetris. And people would come up and I would say, not only does it do this, and I'd pop out the disc and throw in a movie and, try and get people to buy the thing. But really, I just got paid to play Tetris like for hours at a time.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep. Lots of cool stories from Juilliard. But so your question was, what was your first gig? I kind of feel like that showcase led to my first real 3 gigs, right? Because I vacillated between those 3 things to pay my bills for basically the first, I should say the second 6 months that I was in New York until the New York Renaissance Festival, which used to be it used to be an equity contract. It used to be a thing. They had half equity, half not. And that's where I met you.
I did meet you there. Do you remember the first day we met, what you did?
I have a vague memory. Yes.
When you fell off that top, the hole, that thing, you just did a fall and everyone shit their pants.
So they took us to this one stage. We went up to the site after rehearsing in the city once or twice a week for almost, I want to say like 6-8 weeks. Yep. And then when we all went up for our first day on site, there were certain things that the vets, the people who have been there forever, didn't explain to us. We went to this one outdoor stage, which was, almost like a wagon stage with big cloth over it and this sort of benches leading to stadium seating in the back, old wooden creaky stadium seating. And all of a sudden we're doing this trial where we're supposed to be improvising, imagining that someone's been brought out of the audience to be accused of a crime. And no one had said anything about this. We're just doing it. I don't understand. So I'm like, we're supposed to be entertaining. Okay. I kind of sneak myself up to the top row. And I believe when Aaron retells this story, he says he caught me out of the corner of his eye, like making adjustments and looking over because I was planning on doing this stupid thing. I was playing the town drunk. That was my gig. I was the town shire dentist and drunk. And I had no
clue what you're going to do. I just knew you were fucking around with something.
He's up to something. That dude's up to something. So I raised my hand to be called on, not knowing what I was going to say. I started just, BSing something in drunkies and flailed my arms and overdid it and did a Pratt roll off the back of the stadium seating, which I had already kind of scoped it out, so I just did a backflip and landed on my feet on the other side and just didn't do anything. And I just hear all these people, whoa! And everybody comes running to make sure I'm okay. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm fine. It was a gag. I'm sorry. And the coordinator was pissed.
Beyond angry.
Oh, don't do that to people. I like that. I'm sorry. Tell me the rules. I was just being silly.
That was awesome. That's when I knew you and I were going to hang out. When you pissed everybody off in one go, I was like, yep, me and him are going to hang. When you go back, what was your first puppeteer gig? Because that's something that I always remembered as you were going on. Like, I even remember when you would get little ones or stuff like that. I was always so excited for you. But what was your first big puppeteer gig?
So my first job doing puppets was back in high school in Oklahoma. I got hooked up with a woman who did PR for a local mall. The shtick of the developers of the mall was that around the country where they had built these things, they also built a marionette theater in the center of the second floor. And they had shows designed for them that could be packed up in a case and shipped around. So the shows would just kind of rotate the malls in various states. And there was a troupe of high school age kids who got rudimentary enough skills to wiggle the dollies to a cassette tape that would get thrown in, and you just do the show to the canned tape. And after you'd done it for a couple of weeks, the new one showed up. We'd rehearse it while we're doing the other one for everyone. Once this one's rehearsed enough, this one gets packed up, shipped to the next place, and do it. So they just kept rotating them. So marionettes was technically my first job, really. And I was okay at it, but it didn't really, my estimation of, at least in the puppetry world, people are either into puppets from the time they're little, or they kind of fall into it along the way. And there's different ideologies that kind of glom on to different styles, and some people develop their own. In my ideology, I think a dancer mentality is more in line with a marionettist.
Whereas I can't picture you as a dancer at all.
Yeah. Well, that's funny, because again, as that first job with the Gilbert and Sullivan Players, technically my title was lead dancer, because I could do a backflip and they made me do one.
That's the thing, is I always saw you as acrobatic, but I never, because again, but whenever you just keep saying dancer now, I just laugh, because I'm just thinking of the two of us. I'm like, I just see you like doing ballet stuff going.
I could hold my own. No, it's fine. Fine. Ridicule me. It's fine. Yeah, obviously, my wife wishes I danced a lot more than I want to. I'm a dancer.
So you started off with you doing the marionettes.
Happened, but kind of dropped it. And then in college, I was doing a role that was a new work. The director of the theater department at Eckerd College in Florida was also attached to a writers group that had a week sort of retreat every year, where folks established in the business would come and they'd read pieces for one another and sort of workshop stuff. And he asked one of these writers to premiere one of his plays at Eckerd College. And I was playing the role of this father. The play was about a kid who got lost in the woods and winds up being raised by squirrels. No, pardon me, raccoons.
Okay.
Oof.
Much better.
Raised by raccoons. And gets found and adopted by a family, but then eventually gets wrapped into the world of a televangelist style huckster. Anyway, I played the dad. It's a very strange play. Mr. Kling's play.
That's it.
And I played the adoptive father who had a little bit of a screw loose, who was always talking to a dog that he was the only one who could see it. So he's like playing fetch with a dog that no one else can see. It's not really there. And about, I don't know, a week or two into rehearsals, I thought I would be able to milk more comedy out of it if I had a scene partner with this dog stuff. So I asked, do you think it'd be cool if I turned an old sock into a shitty dog puppet? And so the dog is there, and everybody knows that the dog's not there, but I think the dog's there. And he asked the writer, and I was like, yeah, I guess you could try that. So I brought puppetry into this role. Because I had done that, a friend of the family said, you like puppets, and put an ad in the paper that she had seen in the want ads under my nose. It was a guy who had worked as a local hire in Florida when the Jim Henson Company had done stuff for Disney in Florida and needed local people because they couldn't afford to ship a whole lot of folks in. So this is a guy who was a church puppeteer all of his life, who got his eyes opened to what we call monitor puppetry, which is what the true skill set of Muppet performers is.
Jim so Henson that's the stuff they would do on the Muppets or anything like that.
Right. Whenever you've seen a thing that's major TV, even Mr. Rogers, when you saw those puppets, they would instead of the typical puppet stage like you see at a birthday party or whatever, with a puppet blind and a playboard,
you would Punch and Judy.
Exactly. They use the the frame of the camera as the proscenium, right? So you just hide under the frame of the camera and just lift the puppet up into frame. And the way you do that with precision and have the puppet be able to relate to other things in the frame of the camera with precision is you've got a television monitor showing you what the camera sees within your visual range. So you're looking at the puppet on frame so you can make it look like it's looking at the things that it's supposed to look at and relate to the things it's supposed to relate to. So this guy who'd been a church puppeteer all his life, Punch and Judy, but with God, suddenly had this whole new world of skill set of doing the TV stuff and had been practicing by himself for who knows how long and realized the only way he was going to up his game is if he had people to play with. And that's basically what the ad was. Hey, I don't want money. I can't pay money, but I want to teach people how to do this. And who knows, it could be fun. So I went and it was awesome. It was so cool finding out how all of that worked. It just really flipped all the puzzle problem switches in my brain. And there were like 20 people the first week, and there were like 12 the second week. And then by the third week, there were like 4 of us and him. And the 5 of us were so into it. He's like, how about we do this twice a week instead of once? So, we literally would just practice in front of a camera on a tripod, lip syncing to songs, doing silly skits. We would give each other challenges of doing a physical performance within the song that was a story aligned with the lyrics, but not necessarily directly supporting the lyrics. So you'd act out a scene that the song could kind of sort of be about, and then have everybody kind of guess what you were trying to do, right? So the better you got with the physicality of the puppet, the more they could say, this is where you were, this is what you were doing, kind of a thing. And it was just really fun. It was really great. Yeah.
Speaking really quickly of, I don't mean to cut you off. Speaking quickly of shitty dog sock puppets, wasn't one of the first gigs I knew you on? Didn't you get that shitty dog puppet on TV? What was it for? Like,
it was early on. I guess you could say it was one of the first. It was yes. After
what was it?
After the pets.com dog, the silly, which was done by a pretty famous improvising comedian at this point. That design of that thing, the IP, was sold to another company. So the pets.com dog became the Bar None auto loan dog. So I performed that puppet, but for Bar None auto loans for a while.
I do. That's what when you're talking about that dog puppet, I was like, wait a minute. I remember one.
Wait a minute. Flashback. Yeah. Yeah, and I just made one of the stupidest financial moves I've ever made in my life, because my sense of chivalry is just overinflated. The owner of the company at one point, the ads were doing well enough. He offered to give me a percentage of the company in lieu of payment for doing the work. Right. So It's like, it would be a quid pro quo of, and it felt inequitable to me. It felt like it was more money than was appropriate. So I said I'd rather get paid better for when we shoot the commercials than have a percentage of the company. Dumb, just a dumb decision. I can't believe I still can't believe I did that.
You should have talked to me about that. I would have told you to take the piece. You didn't talk to me about that.
Just dumb.
I would have been like, you take the piece. You take the piece of that company. Yeah, you go in every day just with that thing. Give him a piece. Absolutely. Now,
so
you've done so much with the puppeteering, and you've gone through all of the different shows. What was the first big break for you into the puppeteering world, and more like what we're talking about, the monitor puppets and the TV?
What sort of the first big break was the Faire in the Big Blue House, which was
that's a good one.
Yeah,
like, I remember that one too. That was that. I still have friends whose kids watch reruns of that.
Oh yeah, it's on. Yeah, it's on Disney Plus nowadays. Yeah.
Which ones were you on that?
So, in the initial season, as it was written, we were supposed to be a smaller show. Like, and the idea was that you had Faire, who was the Mr. Rogers-esque paternal, hey, come play with me character
Yeah.
who would have little scenelets with other creatures that were in and around his home. And so we were multiply cast because the thought was they would never all be in a scene together. It would be Bear with so-and-so and then Bear with so-and-so and then Bear with so-and-so. So I was cast initially as Pip, who was the partner to Pop. Pip and Pop are these sort of brother-esque, cousin-esque, best friend-esque purple otters whose whole thing was about the better parts of a sibling relationship was what they represented on the show. So I was Pop of Pip and Pop, and then Trilo, who was a lemur, green and white lemur with a blue and white tail. He was based on a ringtail lemur, but fluorescent colors. And it never wound up being the way they had intended. There was always a group shot in every episode, and then by the end of the first season, almost every scene was almost everybody. There might be one time that he would be off alone with one. So someone was always doing one of my puppets, and I was throwing the voice while I was doing whichever one had the most lines in the scene.
Nice.
That was a great show. It is a great show. And if you
It is a great show.
Any young kids, it still holds up. It's really, really sweet, and the music is fantastic, and it's just awesome.
One of the things that I always loved is when you got Sesame Street and when you were doing stuff on Sesame Street. How long have you now been doing Sesame Street on it?
So technically, when I first got to New York in 93, before I met you, I sent the tape of the stuff that we had done in Florida to the Henson Company. What happened after we worked together as a group for a while, we eventually made a music video to kind of market ourselves. We did a lip sync video to a version of Blue Suede Shoes. The reason I'm mentioning is that I had a fairly decent reel of stuff that we had done, and produced. So I put that on a VHS cassette and sent it to the Henson Company.
VHS.
It was a full 42-minute VHS. So stupid. Here's my reel of everything I've ever done. So dumb. I didn't hear anything. I let like 3 weeks go by. And then I called up and I was like, hi, my name's Tyler Bunch. Actually, receptionist. And like, I'm a puppeteer. I sent in a tape. Hold on. They connect me to who I now know was a woman named Renee Rochelle, who was the talent coordinator for the Jim Henson Company at their New York offices, the New York mansion at the time. Hi, I sent in a tape. And she's like, yeah, we get a lot of tapes. Somebody will look at it eventually, we'll see what happens. Thanks, bye, kind of a thing. And like, crap. And I stewed on that for maybe a week, 10 days. And then I called back and lied. And I said, hi, I called before about a tape that I sent. I just got a job offer that's going to take me out of town. And I'm not looking for work, but it's not the best gig. And if there was any way possible that you would ever want to work with me, I think I'd much rather stay in the area in case there were any other possibilities close to home. Oh, wait, can I call you back? Sure. About, I'm going to say 5 minutes later, phone rings. I got somebody who can look at it tomorrow. Is that too late? And I'm like, no, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Shit you can't do nowadays.
Yeah, right.
For 100, Alex. So I now know Kevin Clash, who was Elmo at the time, looked at the tape and was impressed enough that he invited me to basically observe on the Sesame Street set. So that was back in, I want to say, November of 1993.
Nice.
That was my first time walking on the set.
Oh, what was that like? What was that like for you?
It was kind of mind blowing. It was, there are flashes of images that I still remember from the day. The most memorable experience I had that day was who, I now know. I didn't know these people. I wasn't as much of a, something just happened. There's a loud noise. I wasn't as much of a Muppophile as a lot of my peers in that world. Like I didn't grow up wanting to be a Muppet performer. A lot of these people did, and they know everybody's faces and lives and careers, and they know. I now know it was Joey Mazzarino and David Rudman kind of cornered me on a couch about an hour before lunchtime and just started asking questions. And the reason I say an hour before lunchtime is that I now know they were setting me up. They were razzing me. They were basically trying to figure out a way to get out of working at lunch because some political dignitary was visiting the set and wanted to have a photo op with one of the characters. And they had been assigned to do a photo op with Cookie Monster and didn't want to do it. So their setup was, oh, there's this thing happening at lunch. I bet if you asked, I bet you could be part of it. Really? Like, really?
I can do your job for free? Really?
So of course, I did it. Like, so my first day thing, I get to go in and put Cookie Monster on. I'm like, oh my God. And I remember, I now know this is a thing they do to tease each other all the time, that whenever Cookie eats one of his fake cookies, and they pick up big crumbs of it and shove it in the hand of the puppet because he has live hands. So that when you put your hand in there, there's all kinds of crumbs in there. But for me, I put it, oh my God, it's a cookie. Oh, like it's the most special thing in the world.
There's real cookies in this monster. It's real. I knew it was real.
So I did my silly photo op. And of course, it's like a decade later when I realized, holy crap, every part of that day was a setup and baloney. It's still magic, though. I mean, it is. It's still magic. It was an awesome experience.
Who was your most favorite or most amazing puppeteer to have met?
There's multiple levels to that.
Don't want to single anybody out. You can play around with more than one.
The day I made Frank Oz laugh, I felt like,
yeah,
I'm in kind of a thing. Like, that's one of those things of like, if I never pick up a puppet again, I made Frank Oz laugh. So that was kind of cool.
That's the number one and number two right there. Jim Henson, yep. Frank Oz.
Yeah. And I never got to meet Jim. I started puppeteering about a year after he died is when I started doing that style. So I never got to meet him. I've met everyone else in the family, even those that are no longer with us, but I didn't get to meet him.
Wow.
And I've worked with just about everybody else who was part of that original crew, with the exception of Richard Hunt, who had passed before I became part of things as well. But all of the initial Muppet crew, and I still know the ones that are still around. But yeah, but another I got to hang out when we went to the Edinburgh Festival with an improv show for Henson called Puppet Up. I got to meet.
I actually remember when you got Puppet Up.
Oh, really?
I remember that. Yeah, I do remember that. We had done some improv and stuff before, but you had gotten that Puppet Up, and I remember how I was like, God, that's a big deal. That's fantastic.
It was cool. It was. I mean, it still is. It still goes on. It has become sort of the machine for finding new talent for the Henson Company in LA. At the time, Brian Henson really, I think, wanted to make it a TV show, and it just never worked out for that to happen. But I got to, it's for those of you who haven't, if you're in LA and you see that it's happening, go see Puppet Up. It is an amazing, awesome experience. You will have a good time. The basics of the show is that it's effectively, for those uninitiated, whose line is it anyway, with puppets instead of people, basically. There's a camera on a monopod center stage pointing at a very pretty background that can be adjusted. On either side of that very pretty background are two huge projection monitors. Under the monitors on one side of the stage are, depending on the show, between 6 and 10 puppeteers. And on the other side are about 120 to 180 puppets and the host of the show, who interacts with the audience much the way the hosts of any short form improv show would. Get information from the audience. The puppeteers go and snag whatever puppets they feel are appropriate for the short form bit, lift the puppets over their heads up into the frame of the camera. So the two projection monitors, you see just the puppets like you would on the Muppet Show, on Sesame Street, whatever. But you can also watch the puppeteers because you can see them full stage holding the puppets over their head and everything that they're doing. And it's some of the best improv you will ever see. If you're someone who gets a little over the improv thing, you get to watch puppets. If puppets aren't your thing, you get to watch people doing puppets. And also just, any big theatrical large audience improv show, hearing how the audience is with the performers, it's just really fun.
When you look back on what was the most famous or the most iconic puppet that you were like, oh my God, got to put on, and even if it was a background or whatever, what was one that was like, oh my God, I can't believe this?
Good question. That's anytime I'm fortunate enough to be able to be a supportive part of the original Muppets with the Muppet franchise is a feel good. I've only ever done Kermit for one shot, and it was the back of his head. It was for the ABC series a little while back, Lowercase Muppets, where if any of you saw it, is Piggy has her own talk show, late night talk show,
I
and the
love
whole thing
that
is
show.
about that.
I think I was the only one that kept watching it.
Yeah, no, yeah, it didn't do well. I thought it got really good near the end, but
I loved
I
it.
get how some people like.
I love that little
still think
shrimp
it's
in it.
funny.
It was the shrimp guy that got me every time he opened his mouth.
Pepe is awesome.
That's it.
So Pepe, Bill Beretta, who created that character, he's the guy I replaced in Puppet Up.
Okay.
He's the guy who didn't want to do it.
That's amazing.
But yeah, there was an over-the-shoulder shot. Everybody else was involved because I think Electric Mayhem's there. So and other people have actual lines, and it's a POV literally over the shoulder of Kermit, and I was the only one around, so I put Kermit on. No, I literally just didn't get a job for the Muppets because it's going to be a live theatrical experience, and all of the puppeteers need to be able to play all of the characters. They'll be lip syncing to a pre-recorded track, but all of the characters will be represented in this live theatrical event. My forearm and the size of my hand mean that Kermit's face and body just don't look right. When I try to put Kermit's body tube over this forearm, his body squishes up. He's like suddenly got wrinkly little shoulders because I can't pull the tube down enough to bring the edges of it down. And my knuckles are such that his face looks like he's been stung by a bee because it's just that little bit of swollen. Because Jim had, kind of wiry hands. Steve Whitmire had kind of wiry hands. Matt Vogel's, his hands are a little bit beefier than those two, but not like mine. So luckily they only had to see just this one side of Kermit's head because I literally had my hand up grabbing his body and pulling it down so that little wrinkle wasn't happening in the shot. So all that was to answer your question. Which puppet have you gone, oh my gosh, I get to? I have at one point or another, with the exception of Gonzo and Zoot.
Okay.
I have probably stood in for pretty much everyone else at one point or another.
Damn.
Fozzie, a version of, and no, I haven't done Animal either. I haven't done Animal because he's really skinny. I haven't done Animal either. But Dr. Teeth, I've done.
You did,
Ralph, Swedish Chef.
Didn't you said Fozzie? Didn't you do Bad Fozzie in the movie?
Yes, I did. And there was a thing, the Jason Segel Muppets movie is what Aaron's referencing there, released in 2011. There was an edict that the speaking characters, for the most part, could only be the main 7 guys. And this, again, was a situation where the day that we were going to shoot this thing, they all were in the scene and there wasn't anyone else to perform the character. So for about 2 hours, every time I passed, who was then the talent coordinator, puppet captain style individual, Bill Beretta, I would say, I could do it. Hey, Bill, how you doing? I could do that. Pretty much I bugged him for literally 2 hours. I could totally, if you needed somebody to do, I could do, being a total jerk about it. And eventually the director, James Bowman, kind of came over and grabbed me and was like, so if you were gonna, do the Fuzzy character, the kind of bad guy Fuzzy, what would that sound like? What would you do? And I said, well, I read the script. You just want him to be like Vanilla Ice, like street. You want him to sound street, like he's on it. Yeah, how you doing? You want him to sound like he's got a certain level of culture that points in a specific street-esque way, right? And so I did my stupid. He's like, yeah, okay, that'll be fine. Yeah, yeah. So I got the nod. Um, so yeah, I was the bad guy Fousey, but the bean counters were absolutely positive that there was no way they would let anybody else do any lines because the people who did lines got paid so much and everybody else got paid this much. So when they were doing the credits for the movie, they were convinced it couldn't have been anyone other than the main seven. So they just said, well, the one who sounds the closest is Bill. So Bill Beretta got credited for the theatrical release for Fousey. And after the screening, which I got too late, he came up and he's like, I'm so sorry. I was like, why is he apologizing? And then an hour later, somebody said, oh yeah, they put your character under his name. I'm like, fudge, are you kidding me? So in the theaters, everyone would think it's Bill Beretta, but then they fixed it for the digital release and put my name on it. But yeah.
Nice. You know, what you do is different than other talent. And you've got like talent shows up, they're in makeup, they get all of this stuff. What you all show up and you're in headbands, you're in sweatpants, you're having to, again, be acrobatic within just how you hold and do the puppets. Kind of walk me through what it takes to get prepared to start working for a day on a puppet show that is monitor based.
Well, it's a double-edged sword. And then like to your point, we don't often have to worry about being there early for makeup and whatever. We don't have to worry about last looks and wardrobe on us particularly. The negative part of that side is that quite often when there is a quote unquote second team rehearsal and they have the stand-ins for the human actors, we still kind of have to be there to do our job because there isn't anybody who's going to be a stand-in for the puppet action. And quite often the people who design and take care of the puppets, the people who have to buy the puppets, don't want anyone but the performers who are supposed to be in them having their hands in the puppets. So quite often we're on set about twice as long as a typical human actor would be.
Okay.
Additionally, if it's a complicated setup and they have to hide us in things, in couches or, in walls or whatever, we're often having to be in the physical position from the time lighting is set until cut. We're in whatever physical position we're supposed to be. And sometimes, that can be as much as an hour. I think the longest I've been up under a set was probably about 2 hours. You it helps if you're not claustrophobic, which if I don't think about it, I'm not claustrophobic. It helps to be a smaller frame. It helps production if you're not a huge person. There are times when my over 6 foot, rather Zoftig frame is good because it means I can hold up the heavier puppets for longer than a lot of people. Like typically in a group scene for the Muppets, for instance, I usually get assigned to the larger or largest puppets because it's easier for me to hold them up in the air for as long as I'm saying that we have to. If you're one of the principal performers, like everyone else, it helps if you show up knowing your lines, but at the same time, we have a monitor that we're always looking at and we can tape up our lines. So they don't have to be deadlock memorized. We can have them there for reference taped next to the screen.
Nice.
But we're also doing a lot of things that certainly an inexperienced camera actor or actress wouldn't have to be cognizant of. Our marks are not physical marks on the floor. There are approximate physical position in relationship to lens, but we have a tendency to make minor adjustments because we can see the frame. Our mark is more about composition than physical um, consistency. So
Nice.
we're looking at the composition consistency more than always being exactly the mark. Um, so it's a little floaty for us, which is either awesome because we can save a take when the actor doesn't hit their mark or whatever, or it sucks because you got a cameraman who's used to consistently going to the same place rather than following somebody, and so there's a dance that happens sometimes. So, circling back to your initial question, the biggest thing you have to do in preparing for a day of work as a puppeteer is make the realization that every shot is a special effects shot. Every shot is creative problem solving. You are going in as a member of a team. You can't have an ego about you, your thoughts, your work. You can have an ego of protection of the character and how it looks in frame, and how it sounds and all that, but some part of everyone's job will have to be compromised or involve compromise in order for a puppet thing to look good. The lighting guys are going to have to tweak stuff because transparent, translucent flesh is up next to fleece. And the guy who's framing the camera will have to tilt up just that tiniest bit so that he doesn't see the actual puppeteers. Person pulling focus is going to have to make the realization that the puppet may not hit their distance to lens mark, but they're going to look like they should in terms of the composition. Like, so everybody's doing a little something to help the puppet look real. And that kind of collaboration does not happen with egos in the space.
Speaking of which, do you remember the show that I had to bring you in? And again, speaking of like losing ego and having to be a collaborative thing, I worked a show as a line producer doing it, and there were puppets on it, and we we were having uh, uh, I wouldn't say issues so much as growing pains. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was and again, I was so low on the totem pole as far as producers. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg was on it and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, we need some help with the puppeteers. I was like, I got a guy.
I got a guy.
I got a guy. And they were like, and you came on. Do you remember that one?
I did, of course I did. And
Yeah.
to your credit, and I think I told you this, the first time I kind of walked into the space. To Aaron's point, everything that I just described, the idea that you're cognizant that everybody else has a job to do too, and so you want the machine to keep moving forward. So I'm not saying on camera talent, including puppeteers, have to be aware of the machine, but it's so much easier if, especially as puppeteers, if you're helping things and helping things stay on schedule and make the realization when you're the one costing time, and that when they make the schedule for the day, it isn't really a wish list. Yes, things can't push if they absolutely have to, but the schedule needs to happen. Somebody's thought this stuff out, and you need to do the things that are on the list in the time that's been asked to do it. And this particular team was an ensemble that came as a package deal, and they were used to sort of freeform, almost devised theater style approach to how they created video content in their own world. And now they're working in someone else's world, and they're still doing that sort of devised theater. Let me think about it. Ooh, wouldn't this be fun if, hey, what if I try? They're all in it, and they're focused on creating the product, but they are not cognizant of schedule and budget and time at all.
No.
And
No.
it's the because Whoopi's on the set, no one is comfortable challenging them to the degree that they needed to be. Everyone wants to give them the space, but also is freaking out because they're going over budget. And so
Oh, yeah.
Aaron, to his credit, said, what if we begin? Go
That
ahead.
was an experience in itself, having her there with
Yeah.
kids
Yeah.
and everybody else, because she doesn't have a filter. That was
She's awesome.
awesome.
So
I
you
do
should know,
remember
to
that
this
one.
day, the guy who their head dude, he hates
Uh-huh.
me. Hates me. like hates me, because there was a time where because I'm a generous individual, and there was no way this thing was going to move at the pace it needed to unless these people started to pay attention. So Aaron brought me in, he explained, he introduced me to the producers, they took me into a room and they said, here's what's going on and here's what we kind of need, and hopefully you can help that. And there was a point about an hour and a half into the day where he was talking to somebody about his folks, and I said, hey guys, you should just know that the this is a business now, and as it's moving forward, it needs to move forward at a swifter pace, because the only way something like this gets greenlit for more things is if it stays under budget. So if you want to keep doing more of these, got to start paying attention to the schedule and moving things a little bit faster. When they went to him and said he just had this, he just read me the riot act. How dare you threaten my people? How dare you tell my people what they are and aren't doing? You talk to me, I talk to them. Don't ever talk to them again. And then when he went to the producers, they were like, oh, he talked to them? We didn't want him to do that. We can't believe he did that. So they threw me under the bus too. So he hates me. Hates me.
Well, they should have listened more, because back then, again, based on talking about business for a moment, when it came to kid shows, they shot them in threes, and that way, as a pilot, because instead of just doing a pilot, they would shoot them in threes, so you had 30 minutes, and at worst case scenario, you could lose it out as a straight to video, an hour and a half to give to kids, which is technically what they did with this project. But like when you look back at it, we had Whoopi Goldberg, we had the two guys that created it were the two guys that did the Backyardigans. We had Rosie O'Donnell, Sandra Bernhardt, Rosie Perez as guests on this thing. You had all of the elements in which to get this picked up. I mean, Dr. John did the music. I mean, you look back at it,
So
and
awesome.
this like puppet, this little piglet, he would do like the lament songs, and he was like, he should be next to a piano with a scotch and a cigarette at this point. Like it was like this is Dr. John. This isn't a kid show. And it was all in New Orleans, setting out of New Orleans and stuff. It had all the elements to get picked up, but it when you looked at it on paper, based on what it was taking to get it done and what it took to get done, there was no way you could pick it up. There's no way you could continue it. You'd be out of money. What do you look back on as one of the craziest, most fun jobs you ever had?
That's hands down. I, for not quite 2 years, off and on, would be part of producing material as a mascot for Air New Zealand. The
What? I never heard this one.
So awesome. So there's one major airline company in New Zealand, Air New Zealand. I think there are others, but that's their main one. And they started doing online ads to promote specific seat designs that they had, and it felt like a roomier seat than the actual economy, and they wanted to advertise this. So this weird advertising company came up with the idea of this character. His name was Rico. You weren't supposed to be able to tell what he was. Like, he had pieces of all kinds of different animals. Like, he was a coherent thing, but is he a raccoon? Is he a badger? Like, what is he? I don't know what he is. And also they wanted him to, you not be able to really figure out where he came from. So you'd have this kind of strange accent that wasn't pin downable. So they weren't making fun of any specific culture. And his whole deal was that he liked to travel. Rico liked to travel. And if he could, he preferred to fly Air New Zealand. And we shot these online commercials down in New Zealand. I went down and we shot 6 spots, I think, the first time I was there, for almost 10 days. And then I did stuff on and off with them, like I say, for like a year and a half. Rico's biggest thing was that he spoke with this strange accent. I called it Eurofakin, because basically any sort of European-esque sounding accent that made the particular joke I was having to say funnier, I would bring in whatever that sound was. So he would say, you could never really tell what it was, right? like I said, you're a faking whatever accent sound made the joke funnier. I would just pull in, so you couldn't tell what the heck it was from. But his biggest thing is that he spoke in unintentional innuendo, malapropisms. Like he would screw up words and just they would come out like, "Hello, we're so happy to be coming on you today. What are we for putting in our mouths? Are you want something? I like when something is juicy there because I feel the drips." And I think maybe something juicy, salty. Maybe we have. You have something? Do you have some salty, juicy I can put my sock on? Just horrible, horrible things. Again, unintentional. He's not trying to be disgusting. And the things they get away with in New Zealand and European culture, like the stuff they would let me say, because again, I was given full reign. They would write something funny, and then I if I could find a way to make it worse, they just let me go. And one of their things is that they involve a lot of celebrities. I did pieces. I flew to LA a couple times. I did a piece featuring their sky couch, which was their economy thing where the legs could flop out. So if you got 3 seats together and make a bed, we have, talks on the sky couch, and the sky couch would just be like poolside. And I did a bit with David Hasselhoff where I interviewed him on the sky couch. We did a bit with Lindsay Lohan while she was under house arrest, so we had to do it in her house and put a boot over her anklet. So I took a dump in Lindsay Lohan's house. I'm very proud to say that. I also, at one point, co-wrote, recorded, and performed a rap with Snoop Dogg. You remembering this now? Oh, I thought
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, look for Rico. If anybody's listening and is curious, Rico and Snoop Dogg.
YouTube. We're going to YouTube. I'm going to try to pull some up for the show.
And the lyrics that I do, my verse, I wrote and improvised the night before Snoop showed up. That was a crazy day. That was a crazy day.
Damn. What do you look back on over your career? We all have a moment that we look back on and we just shake our head at, and oh my God, what was that? What do you look back on as your biggest mistake?
So Aaron and I, sort of, I guess we were co-creator directors of a sketch and improv troupe. Aaron and I kind of started it and pulled some other folks into it. Aaron was the driving force, but I hosted the rehearsals.
Yes.
And we did pretty well. We got enough material together, and eventually, we produced our own show out of the Producers Club in Manhattan.
Yep.
Because we sold wine and beer at intermission, we actually broke even, which most people don't do.
Yep.
It got me an audition. We got known. We got invited to do some comedy clubs where we would do sketches in between stand-up acts. Part of that adventure is how Jim Gaffigan met his now wife, who was a member of our ensemble.
She was in our group, Jeannie,
because they met each other while we were doing what I'm describing.
Yep, that was at New York Comedy Club. Or New York Stand Up.
And that night, that got me brought for the casting directors for Mad TV. I got an audition for Mad TV because of that, and I blew it because I didn't understand what the audition was. I did not understand. Like I wasn't enough in that world. I did, because it was fun. I wasn't into the sketch trajectory enough to them. When they say, come bring some characters, I thought they wanted to see my range. I mean, I now know they wanted me to bring characters that they could write sketches for on Mad TV. That's what they wanted. I just came in and showed my range as an actor and did a puppet because here's what I can do. I blew it. I blew it. I should have talked to somebody because I did not. You could see the disappointment in her eyes as I was leaving the room. Just like, this is a waste of time. Shit. That one hurts. That one still hurts.
We did. You know what is funny now that you're bringing it up? I haven't thought about it in such a long time, but you and I actually before that, we were even doing like the 1 minute play contests in New
Mm-hmm.
York that we were kind of crushing. Going from there, weren't we on CNN with Andy Richter?
Yes.
We did a thing with Andy Richter. We ended up on the news with that.
He did a guest drop in thing at the
Right.
1 minute play contest, and we were
Yes.
asked to write something to involve him. Yeah.
You got a lot of great shows on your resume, and you've got like a million spin-offs from Sesame Street and different things like that. You got the Grover ones, you've got all those things, but there's a lot of other projects that you've done that have actually been really good and really well. Can you talk me through what Word World was?
So, Word World, there's this guy named Don Moody who had come up with this toy idea that was literally one of the most ingenious things I've ever seen. They were stuffed toys that were letters with pieces on them, so that when the letters, because they had magnets on their edges, were put together, the silhouette of the thing that they were, the thing that they spelled, was visible in their configuration. So you had the letter D, O, and G. The magnets would pop together. There were little legs on the D and the G, and a tail sticking out the G, and ears on the D, so that dog, D-O-N-G, made a dog, and it looked like a dog. And there were very cute little toys. There was a sheep, and there was a frog, and there was a train, and it was very, very cool. And it was obvious because of their colors which letters went with which, and because of the magnet placement, you could sort of make others to go together, but they didn't lock in the same way. So kids playing with these toys within 2-3 minutes knew how to spell the thing they were playing with, and it was this osmotic thing that they were learning to read faster because of these toys. And he wanted to put them out into the world, and figured a kid's show featuring characters was the strongest and fastest way to market them. And, the most popular show everybody could think about that deals with letters and stuff was Sesame Street. He decided that puppets would be the thing. And so he's in his office building, and he passes this guy named Aaron Waiton, who's like, he's bemoaning all this stuff. And he's like, oh, man, if only I knew somebody in the puppet work on it. And Aaron's like, I know a guy.
I know again.
So,
like with I got a guy. I got a guy.
Did you fish this story out? Did you realize that you were the connection to Word World?
I got to be honest, I totally forgot until you said Don Moody. When you said Don Moody, I was like, oh shit, I think I'm involved in this story.
You are.
And I totally forgot until that. I just liked the whole principle of these things working out and like spelling out what they were. And that's what I always remembered. And I remembered when you were nominated and stuff for it, and won. So that's why it was coming up. But until you said Don Moody, I literally, I don't know if you saw, like it might have shown on the camera, but when you said Don Moody, I was like, oh shit, yeah, that's got something to do with me. Oh, okay.
So this guy, Aaron Waiton, says, I know a guy. I went in and I met with him, and I was like, sure, I can help you out. And I had him order oversized versions of his toys because they were little. I said, order big ones. On the porch of this house that I'm in now, I poured plastic and did things that needed to be done outside with fumes here. I turned them into puppets, and we shot a sizzle reel where we shot scenes that looked like they were lifted from a series with these puppets. And I brought in Vicky, who I mentioned before, and a very talented puppeteer named Peter Linz, who now plays Ernie, but was also, part of the Bear in the Big Blue House cast. And we shot this teaser, and he went around trying to market it. It was going to be way too expensive and didn't make any sense to be puppets. It was always going to be a thing where, as a narrative, you want to see plain letters, I should say unfeatured letters, that when they assemble magically become the thing. And that morphing in the practical world was always going to be unachievable, at least unless you had tons and tons of money. You might be able to do something with it, with some of the technology now, but animation was a smarter route. And it took him almost 7 years to get, even with the sizzle reel got him into doors and say, this is what we're talking about, but we think it's going to be animation. And he partnered with different companies and eventually found a group that there were enough folks that he could start putting the show together, and reached out to me. Now, the initial show, I helped him with the character complement. When we were figuring out the script, we figured out who the characters were to one another, and I helped him sketch out the world in terms of their relationships and what was important to them and what they were trying to do. So the conceit of the narrative of the show, I was very much a part of molding. Once it became an animated thing, other people brought in their own but that still that base, this is the show and this is what it does thing, I was very much a part of. And he wanted to bring me back into the team, but the only opening available at the time he brought me back on paper was as voice cast. So he said, would you be interested in, and I had voiced some of the characters obviously for the sizzle reel thing, and I was like, sure, I'd love to. It's gonna have to go union. Yeah, we'll figure that out. We start writing scripts. He brings on his cousin to be head writer because she had done some stuff similar, and we start recording. About 2 months in, we finally solidified the cast, and we've been recording, I'm going to say, like 8 scripts, 9 scripts, and he comes back and he's like, Ted, this whole union thing, I can't do it. I can't make a union. And I said, okay, bye, I'm done. He's like, no, wait, don't, what? We got to figure it out. I was like, dude, I'm not gonna work non-union. It's like, it's a thing for me. I'm not gonna. This is gonna get. You got to deal with PBS. I can't risk my career for this. So we could figure it out. He's like, what? How do we do this? And I was like, well, what do you got? Make it worth my while. Give me an offer. Give me a title. Give me something. Give me producer credit. Oh, yeah, okay. What's producer credit? And I said, well, I don't know. Let's come up with something. You come up with a title. Okay, I'll call myself creative producer because my creativity is part of how this thing was produced. You wouldn't be where you are without how, I opened doors and help create the skeleton for this company. And he's like, okay, yeah, creative producer. And I used a fake name for the voiceover stuff, which I have since claimed. But I was still doing story consultation, and I was still, suggesting, as an artist, you suggest line changes anyway. But and I was voicing literally half of the cast. I was the narrator, and I was Dog, and I was a character called Duck, and a character Fly, and I was a very big part of the show. So yeah, when the show
Nice.
won Best Animated Kids Show in 1990s, this is now my headphone rack, as you could see here in my basement. Aaron Waiton got me an Emmy. Thank you, Aaron.
I didn't do shit. You did it all. You always do. I just knew a guy. That's all I do. I know a guy. I can get a guy to fix that. That's what I did as a producer. I just knew guys.
There you go.
When you talk about, you've talked a lot about the other crew members or the other people that you've worked with and all of that. How important is it amongst that community to have camaraderie or have that friendship between each other, especially when you're working together in those environments?
Generally speaking, like I kind of mentioned before, ego has very little place in what has to be an ensemble. And if the construct of the show means there's only 1-2 puppeteers on set, that's one thing. If you got a bunch of people, like almost all the people you've ever seen that have been part of a show that's gotten certainly national and possibly international distribution, a thing that's done in the English language with puppets, is probably involving one of the same, I'm going to say at the most 70 people as on-camera artists in your lifetime, probably. And if I'm talking about what's currently happening with what's currently being produced, it's probably closer to 30 or 40. And if it's one of the major franchises that we're all familiar with, which basically means something created by Henson, what is now Sesame Street, owned and produced by Sesame Workshop, they own the characters now, or the Muppets, which is now Disney. If it's one of those companies creating it, it's probably 30 or less, 30 or fewer of the puppeteers that are consistently working. The only way you become one of those 30 people is if you're easy to work with, right? You have to walk in knowing your job, knowing when it's appropriate to offer solutions or suggestions, knowing when it is not appropriate, knowing when it's okay to crack a joke because it's about lightening the mood and not about taking up the time. Like having set sensitivity and production sensitivity, as well as sensitivity to the other folks in the space, is a necessary ingredient to keep the machine moving forward. So
Nice.
I wouldn't say we're buddies. Some there are friendships among us, and we all obviously can all go hang out together and have a great time. But it also helps to have your own life and have things outside of work and people to go vent to outside of the core of folks that you work with. So it helps to have a rich Jerry Nelson, who's one of the original Muppet performers, who's no longer with us, who was also the Count on Sesame Street. One of the things he said to Matt Vogel, who now plays Kermit, that Matt consistently says to other folks is, have your own thing. Have your own thing outside of the work, outside of the art. Have your own stuff, whatever it is. And I think if we as collaborators were all up in each other's space when we weren't in front of the cameras, when we weren't at the work, doing the work, I think it would not serve the process. We wouldn't be coming at things from different angles and different information sets and different experiences. So we are friendly and we do hang out occasionally outside of work, but I think most of the folks who are part of the ensembles that I've been fortunate enough to be on part of, we need to have our own world and lives outside of it.
Nice. I got one last question for you. We all know how hard sets can be, and you've even talked about, we were just on it right there, about how, people can get on each other or going from there. If there was one ethical principle that you could make everybody on set stick to and have at all times, what would it be?
There are no bad ideas. Don't rush to judgment of an idea that you don't think is the perfect solution. There might be a better idea for the moment, and there might be the best idea at the moment, but there are no bad ideas, and there's never any room to judge someone who's doing their best and trying to bring their best.
I like that. There's a lot of judgment on sets, especially when it comes to opinions. That's awesome. Tyler, I want to thank you for everything today. I want to thank you for coming on, sharing your stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. And again,
not at all.
Thank you for my headphone stand.
No. Did you have fun? Did you have fun today?
I did.
Good.